The morning air inside the military hangar smelled of oil, steel, and jet fuel. Sharp, heavy, and familiar to those who belonged there. Mechanics shouted across the vast space, the echo of metal tools clanging against engines filling the air. The place was alive with purpose. But that morning, the rhythm stopped when a woman in her late 50s stepped through the massive doors, wearing nothing but a faded jacket, jeans, and a quiet look that seemed too gentle for a place built on power. She moved slowly, her steps unsure, as if she didn't quite remember how to walk across that concrete floor anymore. To most of the crew, she looked out of place, just another civilian wandering where she shouldn't be. Two young officers hurried toward her, irritation written on their faces. Outsiders weren't allowed here. They told her to leave immediately, their voices clipped and cold. But she didn't argue. She just kept looking around, at the planes, the tools, the faces, like she was searching for ghosts that only she could see. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper, memory. When one of the officers reached to escort her out, an older mechanic, a veteran of the force, caught sight of her face. He froze. His wrench slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a sharp clang that silenced the room. He knew that face. Not from this life, but from the framed photographs and worn mission logs that hung in the restricted wing of the base. He whispered her name under his breath, almost afraid to believe it. Captain Laura Hayes, the same woman who 25 years ago had led the emergency aerial extraction that saved over 300 soldiers trapped deep in hostile territory. The same pilot who had flown through a storm of fire and smoke against direct orders when every other aircraft had turned back. The woman who never came home after that night. They had called her missing in action. Her name was carved into the memorial wall, and now here she was and standing quietly in the same hangar she once commanded, looking like time had finally caught her. The officers who had tried to remove her stood frozen, confusion and guilt washing over their faces. The old mechanic called the commander immediately. Within minutes, the hangar that had been filled with noise fell into a reverent silence. Men and women who had grown up hearing the story of the night of iron rain, the impossible rescue that no one ever thought could happen, gathered in quiet disbelief. Laura didn't ask for attention. She didn't explain. She simply walked toward an old aircraft tucked in the corner of the hangar, its body rusted, paint chipped, her old call sign faintly visible beneath years of dust. Angel 1. Her hand brushed the wing gently and her eyes filled with tears. Memories flooded back. The roar of the engines, the screams on the radio, the burning horizon that night when she had gone back for them. She had been hit badly. The engines were failing, smoke filling the cockpit. She could have ejected, saved herself. But she didn't. She stayed with the plane, guiding it just low enough for her crew to jump, crashing somewhere far beyond the mountains. For years she had been presumed dead, but she had survived. Found by villagers in a remote region, she spent months recovering, then years living in quiet obscurity. Her body healed, but her mind carried the weight of everything she'd lost: her friends, her career, her identity. By the time she was strong enough to return, the world had moved on. She read her own name on memorial lists, saw news reports about her ultimate sacrifice, and realized that maybe it was better to stay gone. So she did, until that morning. She hadn't come back for glory. She had come back because the plane, her plane, was about to be scrapped. She saw a small news piece about the base dismantling old aircraft, and something inside her broke. She couldn't let the last piece of her story be torn apart. The hangar crew stood in stunned silence as she placed her hand flat against the aircraft's metal skin, her voice barely audible when she whispered, "You still remember, don't you?" The commander arrived moments later. His eyes widened as soon as he saw her. He was young, but he'd studied her file during his training. Every soldier there knew the story of the woman who had disobeyed orders to save lives. He walked slowly toward her and saluted, not as a gesture of command but of reverence. One by one, every soldier in the hangar followed until the entire room stood in silent salute before the woman they had nearly forced out. Tears welled in Laura's eyes. She hadn't expected this, hadn't wanted it, but for the first time in decades she felt seen. Her name, once carved in stone, was now being spoken again by the living. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the base, she sat beside the aircraft one last time. The wind carried the faint hum of engines, distant but familiar. She closed her eyes, remembering the faces of those she saved, The 300 soldiers who owed their lives to a mission no one had approved, and a pilot no one was supposed to remember. Her heart ached, but it also felt lighter. She had made peace with her ghosts. When she finally left the hangar, she turned back once more to see Angel 1 bathed in the orange glow of sunset. A plaque was already being placed beside it by the crew, one simple line engraved into it: Captain Laura Hayes, the angel who came back. Years later, when new recruits trained at that same base, they'd often stop at the old hangar and run their fingers across the smooth metal of her plane. Her story became a quiet legend, not of war, but of loyalty, sacrifice, and courage that never needed recognition to be real. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of History, where true stories of courage and silent heroes live forever. Special request: tell us in the comments, what part of Laura's story moved you the most? Her return? Her sacrifice? Or the way she was finally remembered?